Dear students, today I am going to take up the last lesson, which is the first lesson in your English text, Flamingo. The last lesson by Alphonse Daudet. Alphonse Daudet was born on 13th May 1840 in Nimes in France, and he lived for nearly 57 years. He was a French short story writer and a novelist. Daudet wrote his first novel at the age of 14. He is remembered for his humorous sentimental portrayal of the life and characters of southern France. Well, the story, the last lesson, is set in the days of the Franco-Prussian War, fought in the year 1870. France was defeated by Prussia, which was then a coalition of German states led by Prussia, and the districts of Alsace and Lorraine had passed into the Prussian hands. The order or the verdict from Berlin was to teach only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. This is the backdrop to the story. The story unfolds the effect of this transition on the people of France through the eyes of a young boy, Franz. It is the last day of their French teacher, Monsieur Hamel, or Mr. Hamel, who has been there for 40 years. He is full of grief, nostalgia, and patriotism. As a mark of respect to his hard work, the village men also attend the last lesson. They are regretful or remorseful, as they did not learn their mother tongue, French, in their childhood. Franz is shocked to know that it is his last lesson. He feels sad at the thought of not learning his mother tongue as he should have. Now suddenly he gets interested in learning the language and understands everything taught on that day. Little Franz develops an instant liking for the teacher, Monsieur Hamel, and feels sorry for him for his going to leave France. Monsieur Hamel tells them that they all are at fault for not being eager enough to learn and putting it off to the next day. He blames himself for not teaching them sincerely. Thus, procrastination results in regret. The teacher's patriotism is reflected in his praise for the French language as being the most beautiful and most logical language in the world. He tells the class to guard their language, as holding fast to one's language is the key to escape from the prison of slavery. It will help them in getting liberated from the Germans. As you all know, the story describes what is just another ordinary day for Franz, who starts very late for school that morning. In fact, he is unwilling or reluctant to go to school as he has not prepared his French lesson on participles, and his teacher, Monsieur Hamel, is going to conduct a test on the topic in the class. Initially, he thinks of spending the bright, warm outdoors, enjoying the chirping of birds and drilling of Prussian soldiers at the back of the sawmill. But finally, he decides to go to school. On the way, Franz passes the town hall, where he sees a large crowd reading the bulletin board, which has been a source of all bad news. He doesn't stop there and rushes to school. When he arrives at the school, he finds a strange quietness there. He finds that his classmates are already seated in their places and the teacher has started teaching. The back benches are occupied by the village elders, who look grim and solemn. To his surprise, Monsieur Hamel is in his formal dress, which he used to wear only on the inspection day or prize days. Franz finds Monsieur Hamel to be kinder than usual. He doesn't scold Franz for being late. Franz is shocked to get the news that this is the last lesson in French, and the new German teacher will take charge on the next day. He is full of regret for not learning his mother tongue and feels a sudden love for French. He even starts liking Monsieur Hamel and forgets all about his ruler and crankiness. When M. Hamel asks Franz to answer a question on participles, he is not able to answer. Yet, his teacher doesn't scold him and remarks that the only trouble with people of Alsace was putting off learning till the next day. He blames the parents for sending their children to earn money rather than sending them to school. He also blames himself for sending students to water his plants or giving them a holiday whenever he went fishing. Monsieur Hamel then talks of the French language, calls it the most beautiful language in the world. He earnestly appeals to students to keep their language close to their heart, hold fast to it, to get back their lost freedom. He tries to give his best on the last day of his teaching. The situation is quite ironical. Starting with grammar, he teaches them a lesson in writing. Monsieur Hamel gives the class new copies with France, Alsace, France, Alsace beautifully written on them. Franz feels that there is an air of patriotism in the class. The handouts are like flags of France that are seen floating all around. The entire class gets busy writing, and the only sound that could be heard is that of the pen writing on the paper, interrupted by the cooing of the pigeons. Monsieur Hamel remains composed and hears the lesson from the entire class. After the writing task, there is a lesson in history, followed by phonetics. Hauser and the other elders in the class also join in reciting the French alphabet with the class. Everybody gets emotional. Franz can never forget his last lesson. And Hamel begins to speak, but he is overpowered by emotion. He takes a piece of chalk and writes the words Viva la France, meaning long live France, on the blackboard as large as he could. The class is then asked to disperse. This is how the lesson ends. Dear students, this story, written with a historical background, is a beautiful depiction of the emotional bond of people with their mother tongue. It depicts the pathos of the situation, that in order to conquer the minds of the people, the conquered are enslaved physically and mentally. With the loss of their mother tongue or language, they lose their identity. These are some important points that you should remember. The Franco-Prussian War and the capturing of the French districts of Alsace and Lorraine, Franz failing to learn his lesson in participles, the school being unusual on the last day of M. Hamel's French lesson, the reason for the village elders attending the French class, Monsieur Hamel dressed in his best attire, the verdict from Berlin, reaction to the verdict by Franz, a sense of regret expressed by Monsieur Hamel and others, glorifying French language, appealing to people to hold on to their language, a key to their prison and liberty, Monsieur Hamel's desperation in giving his best as a teacher on the last day, a sense of regret leading to situational irony, and another important aspect which you should all remember is that linguistic chauvinism exhibited by the Prussians, particularly the Germans on the one hand, and a sudden upsurge or a rise of patriotism by the French on the other. A great feeling of regret and expression of patriotism by Monsieur Hamel. Well, you've got a set of phrases here which you should remember. in great dread of. You know how Franz was in great dread of scolding by Mr. Hamel because he hadn't studied the participles, means fear of or scared of. In plenty of time, somebody called out to Franz, said, "Don't worry, you'll reach school in plenty of time. Not worry about being late on that day." And how does he reach his school? All out of breath, panting, gasping for air. A great bustle means noise created by men. To count on. This is what he had counted on, Franz. Noise in the class. But that day the class was unusual or silent. In unison, saying things together, singing together in chorus. And to get over one's fright or to overcome one's fright. You know how Franz gets over his fright when he goes and occupies his place? Thumbed at the edges, damaged at the edges. Hauser was holding a primer, thumbed at the edges. Mixed up. Again, Franz gets confused when Hamel questions him on participles. Reproach. Hamel blames himself, parents, for not learning their own language. At once true. You know how desperate Hamel was to give whatever he could on that day as a teacher at one stroke. Well, you've got a set of words here which you should learn. Apprentice means trainee, drilling, exercising. Commotion refers to noise and confusion. To resist is to stay away. Cranky means strange. Thunderclap, something unexpected or startling. Gazing or looking intently or fixedly at something. Gesture, signal or wave, it's a body language. Trumpets, a musical instrument. Grave or serious. Primer, a basic book on a subject. Rapping, tapping or striking. Saar is a river which passes through France. Sawmill is a factory for cutting wood. There was a solemn atmosphere, serious atmosphere in the class. Twined or twisted, the way creepers, climbers twine or twist themselves. Wretches mean the ones hated. Well, there are important questions from the board papers of the previous years. Question 1. What was the mood in the classroom when Monsieur Hamel gave the last French lesson? What had the narrator counted on? You know, the noise or the commotion to enter the school. This is your last French lesson. How did Franz react to this? It came to him as a thunderclap. What changes came over him after he heard Hamel's announcement? What was tempting Franz to keep away from school? The chirping of the birds, the Prussians drilling, the warm weather outside. What was unusual about Monsieur Hamel's dress? He was dressed in his best. Why had the bulletin board become a center of attention during the last 2 years? More questions are here. What had been put up on the bulletin board? Who did Monsieur Hamel blame for the neglect of learning on the part of boys like Franz? He blames students, parents and himself. Franz thinks, will they make them sing in German too, those pigeons? To what extent will these Prussians go in curtailing their freedom? What a thunderclap these words were to me, the verdict from Berlin. What announcement did Monsieur Hamel make? Again the verdict. What did Hamel tell the people in the class about French language? It's a beautiful language, it's a unique language, and he asked them to guard their language and not to let it go. It would act as a key to their prison. What words did Monsieur Hamel write on the blackboard? Vive la France, long live France. Long answer type questions. A few important questions are here. What did the French teacher tell his students in his last French lesson? What impact did it have on them and why? How different from usual was the atmosphere at school on the day of the last lesson? And you know, everybody is filled with regret during the last lesson. You have to comment on it. Our language is part of our culture and we are proud of it. Describe how regretful Monsieur Hamel and the village elders are for having neglected their native language, French. What makes it evident that Monsieur Hamel desperately tried to give his best as a teacher on the last day of the French class. Hope this session was useful to you, dear students. With best wishes, I am Swarnalata, PGT English, Kendriya Vidyalaya CLRI, Chennai region. Thank you.